The sun has risen every single day of your life and of every life before you. It feels eternal, fixed, the one thing that will always be there. But it will not. The sun is a star, and like every star, it is going to die. We even know roughly how and when. The sun is in the prime of its life. For 4.5 billion years, it has been quietly fusing hydrogen into helium in its core, and it has roughly 5 billion years of that calm left. We are living in its long, stable middle age, but middle age does not last forever. A star is a balancing act. Gravity is forever trying to crush it inward, while the energy of fusion pushes outward. As long as the core keeps burning, the two forces hold each other in a near-perfect standoff. The sun's whole life is the story of that balance, and of the day it finally breaks. The trouble begins when the core runs low on hydrogen. Slowly, over hundreds of millions of years, the sun is converting its central fuel into helium ash. Eventually, the core has burned nearly all the hydrogen it can reach, and the steady fire that has held back gravity for billions of years begins to falter. With the fire fading, gravity gains the upper hand. The helium core, no longer fully supported, begins to contract and heat up. And here is the strange twist. As the core shrinks and grows hotter, it drives the layers around it to burn faster and fiercer than ever before. Around the dead core, a shell of hydrogen catches fire. This burning shell pours out far more energy than the old core ever did. That flood of energy pushes outward on everything above it, and the sun responds in the most dramatic way imaginable. It begins to swell. Over a few 100 million years, the sun balloons outward, growing dozens, then hundreds of times its present size. As it expands, its surface cools and reddens. The familiar yellow star becomes a vast, bloated, glowering red giant, large enough to swallow the inner solar system. The first victims are soon. As the sun swells, it reaches out and engulfs Mercury, then Venus, swallowing them whole into its outer layers. The two innermost planets are simply consumed, vaporized inside the expanding star. They will cease to exist entirely. And the Earth, its fate hangs by a thread. The sun will lose mass as it grows, loosening its grip, and the Earth's orbit may drift outward in response. But the red giant will expand so enormously that our planet may still be engulfed, or left as a scorched cinder skimming the giant's edge. Long before that, life on Earth will already be over. As the sun brightens on its way to gianthood, the oceans will boil away and the atmosphere will be stripped. In perhaps 1 billion years, far sooner than the sun's death, the Earth will become uninhabitable. The giant phase only finishes the job. Meanwhile, deep inside, the contracting helium core keeps heating until it crosses a threshold. Suddenly, the helium itself ignites, fusing into carbon in a runaway burst called the helium flash. For a few brief moments, the core releases energy at a staggering rate, before settling into a new, steadier burn. Now the sun enters a brief second act. It steadies, fusing helium into carbon and oxygen in its core, while still burning hydrogen in a shell around it. But helium is a poor, fast-burning fuel. This phase lasts only 100 million years or so, a mere flicker compared to its long hydrogen-burning youth. And then that runs out too. The sun builds up a core of carbon and oxygen, but it is not heavy enough to ever ignite them. Unlike the giant stars, our sun can go no further. With its last usable fuel spent, the great balancing act is finally, permanently over. What happens next is not an explosion, but something gentler and stranger. The sun's outer layers, no longer held tightly, begin to drift away into space. Pulse by pulse, the dying star sheds its entire outer envelope, exhaling its substance outward in great expanding shells of glowing gas. The result is one of the most beautiful objects in the universe. The exposed hot core lights up the expanding gas from within, and it glows in glorious colors, a vast luminous bubble called a planetary nebula. For a few thousand years, the sun's death becomes a jewel hanging in the dark. It is a strange and lovely kind of tombstone. The very same process is happening across the galaxy right now, and our telescopes have captured hundreds of these glowing shrouds, each one a sun-like star in the act of dying. One day, ours will look much the same to whoever might be watching. At the center of that fading beauty, the sun's final form is left behind. The exposed core, the size of the Earth but holding nearly half the sun's mass, settles into a dense, glowing ember. We call it a white dwarf. It is the true corpse of the star, impossibly compact and faintly brilliant. This white dwarf is matter crushed to an extreme. A single spoonful of it would weigh as much as a small truck. Nothing burns inside it anymore. It shines only with leftover heat, a fading warmth radiating slowly away into the cold of space, with no fire left to replace it. From here, the story slows to a crawl. The white dwarf simply cools, over billions upon billions of years, radiating its last heat into the dark. There is no drama left, only an immense, patient fading, far longer than the age of the universe so far. The sun ends not with a bang, but with a slow chill. In the unimaginably distant future, the white dwarf will cool so far that it stops glowing altogether, becoming a cold, dark cinder called a black dwarf. The universe is not yet old enough for a single one to exist. When the sun finally becomes one, it will be a relic of an almost forgotten age. But the sun's death is not only an ending. The gas it sheds, enriched with the carbon and oxygen forged in its final years, drifts out into the galaxy. There it will mingle with other clouds, and one day help to build new stars, new planets, perhaps new life. The sun seeds the future as it dies. This is not a new story. The atoms in your body, the carbon in your cells, the oxygen in your breath, were forged inside earlier stars that died this very way and scattered themselves across space. We are made of the ash of dead suns. Our own sun will, in time, return the favor. None of this is close. The red giant, the nebula, the white dwarf, all of it lies some 5 billion years away, a span so vast it dwarfs the entire history of life on Earth. We are not living in the sun's final days. We are living in its long, golden, generous prime. And yet there is something clarifying in knowing the ending. Every sunrise you have ever seen is light from a star with a finite life, spending its fuel to warm a small blue world for a while. The sun's light is not free, and it is not forever. It is borrowed and astonishingly generous while it lasts. Whether anything will be here to watch the sun die is an open question. 5 billion years is time enough for civilizations to rise, fall, leave, or vanish many times over. Perhaps our distant descendants will sail to other stars long before the end, carrying the memory of the sun with them. But the night sky and remember, most of those steady points of light are stars much like the sun, each one balanced between fire and gravity, each one destined for the same slow, luminous death. The sky is full of suns, all of them temporary, all of them shining anyway. For now, though, the sun simply shines. Hydrogen fuses into helium in its heart. Photons climb slowly to the surface and stream out across 93 million miles of space to fall, 8 minutes later, on your upturned face. The balance holds, the fire burns steady, the day is bright. Ends does not make the sun less wondrous. If anything, it makes each ordinary day of light a small miracle of timing, that we are here now, in the narrow window when our star burns calm and bright, before the long unwinding ever begins. So the sun will die, but slowly and beautifully and far away. It will swell and shed and glow as a jewel, and fade to a cinder over spans we can barely name. And until that distant unwinding begins, it will keep doing the one thing it has always done. It will rise. We will likely never see its ending. We are a brief spark in the sun's long noon, here while the light is steady and the world is warm. That is not a small thing. It is perhaps the most fortunate position in all of time to live beneath a star in the fullness of its strength.